So I've got my leaves, and I had those all wrapped up from before. So they stayed nice and moist, and they stayed nicely individual. Yeah, if I'd just left these out, they'd be very dry at this point. This one, not as much because it's thicker. It has more mass to hold the water. These leaves would have been very dry. And when we're putting clay together, as much as possible, we want them to have the same amount of moisture in them. See, because moisture has to do with shrinking. So the less moisture something has in it, the smaller it becomes. Okay, so if you put something on a vessel, and so then it seems like it's all going good. But if whatever you're putting on is wetter, when it shrinks, it'll come off. So let's say you get your vessel. If that was had already lost a lot of moisture, if it already had shrunk a lot, and then you tried to put something on it, and those things would still continue to shrink. Let's say if they were very wet, and your thing is dry, yeah, it's just going to disattach itself as soon as these dry and as soon as these shrink. So that's why you want them to be about the same level of moisture. Okay, so now how will I arrange these leaves? Looking at my drawing, it's always my reference. So like, okay, well, we've got, let's say, some leaves here. You don't have to follow the pattern exactly. It's more the spirit of the pattern. Things roughly the right size, roughly the type of shapes that you have, that kind of thing. All right. And I do have flowers on here, so I'll try and leave some room for those. I would go ahead and I've got a little bit of water just to dip my tool into. And I'm going to score a little bit where I'm going to put that leaf, maybe even measuring. And like, okay, here's my leaf. Where exactly is it going to go? Maybe somewhere like there. I might even take the time to draw a quick outline. That's where I know. Because I don't want to score where I don't need to score, because then that's going to be ugly and hard to clean up. But I do want to score. It's so important. So vitally important to having things stay attached. And really, if you can, just score the heck out of it. It really makes a big difference. Make it nice and ugly. Nobody's ever going to see this part. And it's the difference as to whether something will really stay attached or not. Okay, so that one, score this as well. That leaf was getting a little bit dry. Okay, so scored, scored, scored. And in scoring it, I've created this stuff, this kind of slurry, slimy sort of clay on it because it's been a little bit wet, just a little bit there. Okay, so that's going to make a good mating surface right there. And we put it right here. And I want to press from the middle out because I want to get rid of any air bubbles, any air that might be trapped under there. So from the middle out, so it's pushing it out, pushing it out, pushing it out, pushing it out, like so. Okay, I want to attach it firmly, but I don't want to squish so much that I misshape my cup. Be conscientious of what's going on the inside as you push. Right? Okay, not too bad. But even as thin as we made these leaves, they're still kind of sticking out a bit. So be careful. It could really get very sort of Fred Flintstone style if you don't make your adornments nice and thin. Because I want this to be a useful cup, something that somebody can actually use. So I want to leave this rim area very clear. Okay, I'm going to push the edges in a little bit around the leaves. Also, I really love wooden pencils to work with because they're just such a great overall art tool. Look how I can even use this to smooth this out around here. Great for drawing with, great as a wooden carving tool. You'll notice how I used it for my scoring. I found it to be far less clunky than the fork. Smooth that out now. Now's the best time to get that. Craftsmanship. Remember, always practice craftsmanship because craftsmanship's it's not something that you can just pull out of nowhere. It's something you have to practice in everything that you do. Otherwise, it won't be there when you want it. And craftsmanship is always impressive. You don't have to be a great artist to be impressive. If you just have craftsmanship, that's always impressive. Good enough. If I really wanted that pattern to be regular, I might have laid out those leaves all ahead of time. And my pattern's a little bit different than what I've got here, but that's okay. Now let's see if I can't get those flowers on. Before I do, I'm going to take a look at my handle and make sure I've got a good place to put my handle. That way I'm not putting flowers in the way. All right. Good place. I think this is as good of a place as any you see. So there's room right down here. There's room up here. The leaf is going underneath it. That'll be fine. Okay, so I've kind of molded my handle to the shape of the cup. See, so that's going to be a nice, easy attachment. And I'm going to score. Let's see, where was that exactly? Right here. Mark out where that's going to go. All right, so score. Now, this handle is such an important attachment. Make sure I get a little bit of water in there and really just kind of mess that up a little bit so that it creates that little bit of slurry in there, that little bit of loose clay, the sliminess. That's going to act like a glue. Oh, look at that little nick that I put. My nails are trimmed pretty close, but I'm telling you, you will do yourself a big favor if you trim those nails really close, because even that little bit, look at how that took that little nick out of there. Okay, and I'm going to make sure get this handle all shaped just the way I want it right before I put it on, because once I put it on, it's going to be a lot more difficult to mess with it. All right, looking good enough. Okay, so there it is. Make sure that it is lined up this way when I look at it. And make sure that it is lined up this way here when I look at it. And give it a little bit of a wiggle and a push and a wiggle and a push and a wiggle and a push. The wiggle is really important because it means that you don't have to push too hard. Because if you push too hard, you can, well, push your cup right out of shape. All right, I think that should be good. All right, I might take a tool, like my wooden tool right here, and just squish those edges right into it a little bit, really making for a nice, strong attachment right there. Alrighty. Now I want to hurry up and get my flowers on here because I want to get a footer on here as well. But I don't want to be messing with anything once I put that footer on there. That's the last thing for sure at this phase. Because if I do much more once I get the footer on, it'll just crush it. I want to be all done. Looking at that, looking at this, getting the two sides more or less symmetrical. In other words, more or less matching. Okay, good enough. Sometimes you get little spindly things, little crumbly things. You know what? Just leave it. Leave it until it's all the way dry. Then you can just brush them off. You try and get it when it's all wet sometimes. It's difficult. It smears. Just leave those until it's nice and dry. Just brush them right off. Okay, that side. This side has a little bit more of a roundedness to it that I like. I can't get that. All right, not too bad. I'll mess with it more when it's even drier. Okay. The other thing too is I want to always maybe take a look from the very top. Okay, as I got this all distorted, how's it looking from this direction? Not too bad. Not too bad. We haven't messed it up too bad. So let's see if we can't add little flowers like that.